This is my fourth day in the job, so I should thank the Economist for giving me this wonderful opportunity to address such a distinguished audience and to follow distinguished speakers so early after taking on the role. I'm looking forward to it.
So perhaps you could just spend a couple of minutes on what we sometimes call a possible UK-EU reset of relations after Brexit, given the new government of Keir Starmer.
Yep, I'm very happy to talk about the UK's positioning towards Europe. And I guess two things I would say at the outset. We've been hearing about some very sort of challenging areas, some very depressing international challenges. I feel I'm talking about a subject that is where I would say cautiously is moving in the right direction. We've also heard, including from you, John, in your opening remarks, everyone is quite rightly stressing that we are going through an extraordinary period of change and turbulence geopolitically. In the UK, we have a new government 4 months into its term with a very solid majority, and against that turbulent background, I hope that we can be a point of continuity and stability. As I said, the new government came into office in July. One of its clear stated priorities was its view that there needed to be a reset in relations with Europe. That has a very clear starting point, which is that Brexit is a reality. There will be no return to EU membership, openly or by stealth. There will be no rejoining the customs union or the single market, no return to freedom of movement. There is no desire to kind of plunge back into the very divisive debates that characterize what I would call the Brexit period in the UK. Having said that, the new government is very clear that a reset should be amongst its top priorities, and a reset, I would say, in two senses. Firstly, tone. I think the new government felt that the process of Brexit had led to some scratchiness in relationships, that the tone and quality of dialogue was not where it should be, and that the intensity of content and dialogue was not where it should be. And secondly, content. I think the UK government is keen to explore where there may be aspects of the current withdrawal arrangements that could be improved to mutual benefit, both of the UK and the EU. And so taking those in turn on tone, what you have seen since the UK election in July is a very heavy lean into active engagement by British ministers and the Prime Minister with European counterparts. In his very first week, the Foreign Secretary travelled to Germany, Sweden and Poland. After 2 weeks, the UK hosted the EPC summit in Blenheim Palace. Actually, my role at the time was to organise and deliver that summit. And although it was a long-planned event, it lent itself very well to the new government being able to project its desire for a reset and to articulate some of the shared strategic interests that we have with the EU and Europe more broadly, all European countries. So support for Ukraine, tackling irregular migration, climate, and so on. The Prime Minister has visited several European capitals. On the 2nd of October, he had a very productive meeting with the President of the European Commission. They agreed to strengthen the relationship, and as they put it, to put it on a more secure and stable footing. They articulated the case for stronger cooperation between the UK and the EU in areas such as support for Ukraine, climate change, promoting growth. And they put in place some of the mechanisms and channels for taking that forward. It was agreed that there would be regular UK-EU leader summits starting in the first half of next year, that there would be dialogue at ministerial level to take this forward. So that's what I think we've seen on the reset in tone. On content, I think the government's view is that the trading relationship can be improved at a time when we're very keen to promote growth easing some of the barriers to trade and exports makes obvious sense. I don't want to go into too much detail here, and we are conscious that we're at sort of an early stage in this, but I think it's fair to say the UK is interested in the potential for a veterinary phytosanitary agreement that would ease barriers to trade in food and plants. We're very like-minded partners with similarly high standards in these areas, so it feels like there's potential there. We're interested in making progress in areas such as mutual recognition of qualifications and addressing some of the barriers to touring artists. None of this is easy. I think it would be unrealistic to expect kind of dramatic progress in weeks or months. It's very technical and complex negotiations that will have to be taken forward. But we hope that we can set a sense of direction and establish the channels to move forward. The other area I would mention is around security partnership. The TCA between the UK and the EU does not include provision for cooperation on foreign policy, on defence or development, and that's space that the UK government is keen to fill. My Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has had very good productive meetings with HRVP Borrell. They have agreed that actions have much greater force when the UK and the EU are speaking with one voice. I think there was nice symbolism in my Foreign Secretary attending a Foreign Affairs Council as a guest last month for the first time since the UK left the EU, and I think there was agreement on the goal of a UK-EU security partnership on a high-level foreign policy dialogue at 6 monthly intervals, and on consultations on particular priorities in the meantime. And this feels to me like one of those areas where you can build the plane and fly at the same time, not something that I recommend in real life. But while the processes are being formalized, we can take practical cooperation forward. And I think we're seeing that, for example, with support for Ukraine, where UK and EU sanctions are broadly aligned, where training to the Ukrainian military is being coordinated, where there is mutual work on humanitarian support. I will stop there, but not quite, because the final point I want to leave you with is to say that although I've been talking at a very strategic level, I think the UK government envisages reset both at sort of strategic level with institutions, the EU, the EPC, and so on, but also with all European countries. And the UK's relationship with Cyprus very much fits into this context of reset. I feel very fortunate to have arrived at a time when the bilateral partnership is on a strong upward trajectory. My Prime Minister had a very good and productive meeting with President Christodoulides in London last month. We have a thriving strategic dialogue. We are working together on shared priorities, and the UK highly values the contribution that Cyprus is making to trying to bring stability to a turbulent region, about which we heard from the President and the Foreign Minister earlier today. Let me stop there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that, and let's hope the relationship improves with the EU. As you say, I'm more sceptical than perhaps you sounded that rapid progress will be made. I just want to ask you one question before we move on to the American ambassador about Britain's relationship with Cyprus. I mean, in particular, whether you feel Britain has anything that it could offer to help with what is called the Cyprus problem. My experience of visiting Cyprus repeatedly over the last 20 years is that it's very difficult to find any agreement between the Republic of Cyprus and what is called the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus on almost anything. They can't even agree on what happened in 1974. The only thing that I found everybody agreeing with was that it was all the fault of the British. Does that make it more difficult for Britain to play a role?
The UK has a role in respect of the Cyprus issue. We are a guarantor power. We are a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and more than that, we're actually the penholder on Cyprus within the UN Security Council. So it certainly is an issue that we care about. And I don't want to dwell on the history. What I would say is that we have a forward-looking approach that wants to lean in to all diplomacy that is aimed at resolving the Cyprus issue that has remained unresolved for far too long. So we will play our part, we will take our responsibilities as a guarantor power, as a UN Security Council member, as a contributor to UNFICYP very seriously. We intend to lean in very supportively of UN-led diplomacy, like the President and Foreign Minister. We very much welcome the fact that the UN Secretary General convened a meeting in October. We look forward to seeing what will follow from that, and we want to play an active and constructive part in that diplomatic process.
Very diplomatic. Well, thank you very much. We are running out of time, so I think we will move on to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Good luck.
John. Thank you.